Imagine this. Two fully loaded Boeing 747s, jumbo jets carrying hundreds of people, facing each other on the same runway, shrouded in thick, rolling fog. A moment later, a catastrophic collision results in the loss of 583 lives. This is the story of the Tenerife airport disaster, the deadliest accident in aviation history, and how its tragic lessons transformed the way we fly today. Our story begins not at Tenerife, but 60 miles away at Gran Canaria Airport. On March 27, 1977, a bomb exploded in the terminal, forcing authorities to divert a flood of international flights to a small, regional airport unprepared for the chaos. Los Rodeos, now known as Tenerife North. Los Rodeos was a quaint airport, but it wasn't designed to handle a fleet of massive 747s. Its main apron quickly filled up, forcing aircraft to park on the parallel taxiway. This created a logistical nightmare. To get to the end of the runway for takeoff, planes had no choice but to backtaxi, essentially driving the wrong way down the active runway itself. On this day, this risky procedure became routine. Into this pressure cooker, we introduce our two key players. First, KLM Flight 4805, a Dutch charter flight. Its highly experienced captain, Jacobi van Zante, was a household name in the Netherlands, the face of the airline's safety campaigns. But he was also worried. His crew was approaching their strict duty time limits. If they didn't get airborne soon, the flight would be cancelled, stranding passengers and costing the airline a fortune. To save time at their next stop, he decided to refuel right there in Tenerife, adding tons of highly flammable fuel and, crucially, more delay. And then there was Pan Am Flight 1736, an American jumbo jet filled with passengers heading for a cruise. Its crew was weary, having been diverted and now stuck in the ground traffic jam. They just wanted to get off this congested runway and wait for their turn. Overseeing this entire scene was a small team of Spanish air traffic controllers in the tower, stretched to their limits. They had no ground radar, a tool that would have shown them the exact position of every plane on the airfield. Their only eyes were the radio and whatever they could glimpse through the increasingly dense fog. As the KLM jet finished refueling, the weather took a dramatic turn for the worse. Thick banks of fog began to roll across the airport, swallowing the runway. Visibility plunged from miles to just a few hundred meters in seconds. From the tower, the controllers could no longer see the planes. On the runway, the pilots could barely see the nose of their own aircraft. The pressure on the KLM captain was immense. The refueling had taken longer than expected, and the fog was getting worse. He was convinced that if they didn't leave *, they would be stuck for the night. This sense of urgency began to cloud his judgment. He taxied his 747 onto the runway and began the backtaxi procedure, lining up for departure at the far end. Meanwhile, the Pan Am jet was instructed to follow him down the runway and exit at a designated turnoff called Taxiway 3. Here's where the chain of errors begins to link together. In the dense fog, the Pan Am crew struggled to identify the taxiways. The markings were faint, and Taxiway 3 required a sharp, difficult 135-degree turn that was nearly impossible for a 747. They missed it and continued slowly down the runway, looking for the next, easier exit, Taxiway 4. They were still on the active runway. Up in the KLM cockpit, Captain Van Zanten has completed his 180-degree turn and is poised for takeoff. He pushes the throttles forward. His first officer, concerned, radios the tower. We are at takeoff. This was non-standard phrasing. It wasn't a request. It was a statement of intent. The tower controller, momentarily confused by the wording and assuming they were holding position, replied with their route clearance, but crucially, he ended with, "Okay, stand by for takeoff. I will call you." At that exact moment, a fatal coincidence occurred. The Pan Am crew, hearing the KLM jet powering up, keyed their own microphone to urgently report, "We're still on the runway." These two simultaneous radio transmissions collided, creating a loud, screeching sound known as a header. The screech completely blocked the most critical part of the controller's message from reaching the KLM cockpit. The words "stand by for takeoff." All the KLM crew heard was "okay, ... Quotes followed by the captain, consumed by expectation, biased hearing what he wanted to hear, took this as confirmation. He said, "We're going," and pushed the throttles to full power. His flight engineer, hearing a fragment of the Pan Am transmission, questioned the captain. "Is he not clear then?" that Pan American. The captain, now committed and hurtling down the runway, emphatically replied, "Oh, yes." He was certain the runway was clear, but it wasn't. Down the fog-shrouded runway, the Pan Am crew saw the landing lights of the KLM 747 suddenly emerge from the gloom, accelerating directly towards them. The Pan Am captain yelled, "There he is! Look at him! Goddamn, that son of a bitch is coming." He slammed the throttles to full power, attempting a desperate, hard left turn to get his massive aircraft off the runway and onto the grass. In the KLM cockpit, they finally saw the silhouette of the Pan Am jet. The first officer screamed. Captain von Zante, in an last-ditch effort, pulled back aggressively on the controls, trying to force his 747 into the air. The plane did lift off, but it was too late. Traveling at nearly 190 miles per hour, the belly and landing gear of the KLM jet ripped through the top of the Pan Am fuselage. The impact was catastrophic. The Pan Am 747 was torn apart and immediately engulfed in a massive fireball. The heavily damaged KLM jet, now airborne but critically wounded and laden with fuel, stayed in the air for a few more seconds before slamming back onto the runway about 1,000 feet further down. It slid for another several hundred feet before exploding in an even larger inferno. In the confusion and fog, it took rescuers a horrifyingly long time to even realize that two planes had been involved. Everyone aboard the KLM flight, all 248 people, perished. On the Pan Am flight, a miracle occurred amidst the horror. Despite the devastation, 61 people, including the pilots, managed to escape the wreckage. But 335 others did not. The final death toll was 583. The investigation revealed a devastating chain of human and systemic failures. It wasn't just one person's fault. It was time pressure, ambiguous communication, and a captain's authority that went unchallenged. It was poor airport infrastructure with no ground radar and confusing signage. It was the fatal coincidence of a blocked radio transmission at the worst possible moment. But from the ashes of this tragedy came the most significant safety revolution in aviation history. The disaster gave birth to Crew Resource Management, or CRM. This new training philosophy completely changed cockpit culture. It empowered junior crew members to challenge a captain's decisions, fostering teamwork and cross-checking over blind authority. Just fly the plane was replaced with "let's manage this flight together." Communication was standardized globally. The word takeoff is now sacred. It is only ever used by air traffic control when giving explicit final clearance, and by pilots when reading that clearance back. At all other times, pilots and controllers use the word departure. This simple change eliminated a key point of confusion that day. Technology was also upgraded. Ground radar became standard at major airports, giving controllers a clear view of all aircraft, regardless of whether runway incursion alert systems were developed and standards for airport signage, lighting, and low visibility operations were made far stricter. The Tenerife disaster remains a stark and somber reminder of how a series of small, seemingly unrelated factors can cascade into the worst imaginable outcome. Yet, its legacy is one of profound, positive change. Every time you board a plane today, you are flying on the safest transportation system ever created, a system built upon the hard-won, tragic lessons learned on a foggy runway in the Canary Islands. The 583 people who lost their lives that day did not die in vain. Their unwilling sacrifice helped build a foundation of safety that protects millions of travelers every single day. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this explanation valuable, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more deep dives into the stories that shape our world. Stay safe, and we'll see you in the next one.